Hello, and thank you for joining us on ABC24 This Week. I am your host, Pepper Baker, and I hope you'll continue to join us every Sunday for the real stories behind the big stories. All right, it's the first Sunday of the month crew, so we know who that comes to the table. It's always political analyst Otis Sanford. We have Shelby County Republican Party Chair Worth Morgan, and we have First Baptist Church Broad Pastor Keith Norman. There we go. All right, good to have you guys back. This is my zesty crew, I like to say.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the topics. First, a bit of a crime wrap today, a violent fallout of 901 Day, and more support for National Guard troops in Memphis. And then we'll move on to Shelby County Commission Committee rethinking the proposed jail sites in New Chicago, plus why outside researchers think a new jail isn't actually necessary. We will end with some very nasty issues within the Memphis Shelby County schools and whether district leaders are working hard enough to keep students and staff safe. But back to number one. So 901 Day celebrates what it means to be a Memphian on the day that reflects the 901 area code, which was Monday, September 1st. Well, the day's events, which were mostly held downtown on Beale Street, were celebrated safely. A huge crowd on Beale Street listening to a great lineup of performers, including rappers Project Pat and even Moneybagg Yo. Now, it was after everything ended, which was around 10 p.m. when a teenager shot a 17-year-old on Beale Street. Now, we interviewed a witness who caught the suspect on video moments before it happened.
Don't do it, little bro. He said what? Like when I had said, don't do it, little bro, he said, he looked at me and said, what? He did, like, you know what I'm saying, conscience did kick in, but I guess the anger and the rage was going on, the fight, and he lost it. I tell people, man, if you don't think in 3 seconds, 3 seconds of your life can cost you 30 years of your life. He young, he had to be like 21, 22. He was a young fella. He had a lot ahead of him.
Now, he was actually younger than that. MPD arrested a 16-year-old suspect and his mother, Suntria Stackins. Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis responded to the arrest, saying police can step in to stop violence, but safer streets start at home. The 17-year-old victim was sent to the hospital in critical condition at first, but is now in stable condition at last check. Very unfortunate situation there, given that 901 Day was such a beautiful experience for a lot of people. So, Otis, I do want to ask you, could anything have been done differently to stop the violence?
Well, I don't know what could have been done. You know, police can't be at every location all the time. And it was a glorious day from what I saw. I wasn't there. I don't do crowds that well these days. But it was a glorious day. And you had a lot of people there. They were enjoying themselves. It's a great concept to celebrate 901, and a lot of people were doing so. It's just unfortunate that you have one, and I'm just going to call him a knucklehead, who's out there with a gun, 16 years old. He should have been at home in the first place. And he's out there shooting at people. And even some of the bullets, I understand, even went into the B.B. King Club. So it's unfortunate, but I don't know what you can do to stop this. I think C.J. Davis is right. It starts at home. And the mother was arrested, and I understand she was arrested because she refused to let the police come into her house, and then first said he wasn't there. So she was actually charged with accessory after fact for trying to basically hoard her son to keep. Well, that's your problem there. You didn't do enough to raise your son to keep him from having a gun on Beale Street at 10:30 at night, and he's 16 years old. So I don't think we can point to this incident as being systematic of the broader crime problem that's causing all the politicians to sort of have their hair on fire.
Yeah, Worth, I actually want to ask you, with the mother being arrested, we're seeing a lot more of these kind of mass shooting situations where the parents are now, the responsibility and the onus is being taken on the parents. What do you think about C.J. Davis's comment and just holding the mother responsible?
I think C.J. and Otis hit the nail on the head. I mean, absolutely, you have to hold these parents accountable. Now, unfortunately, we're doing it after the fact. Where's the public pressure on the front end? Where's the community pressure on the front end to make sure these parents are raising these kids right? And there's some of it out there, but clearly not enough. The job's not getting done. And you know, like you said, there's just a beautiful spirit behind the idea of 901 Day, and they were celebrating that. And you hate to be here talking about this, but the reason we talk about crime all the time, the reason we talk about the problems in Memphis all the time, is not out of a kind of a negative spirit, but we want better for our community. We want the right policies in place. We need the resources to be directed to solve those problems. And for CJ was right. This starts at the home. We've got to make sure that young men are being raised of character and quality rather than that 3-second decision he made that ruined his life and someone else's.
Yeah, Pastor Norman, I want to give you the last note on this before we kind of take a little bit of a hard turn here.
Sure.
Now, the gentleman that recorded it said that there was that split-second moment where he was trying to tell him, like, hey, man, don't do this, and he still carried on. But what do you have to say about someone intervening and just seeing that quick exchange and still, you know, the thought was carried out?
Yeah, well, first of all, I commend the young man for seeking to intervene, and I'm very hopeful that there will be more pre-intervention before this act gets to this point, because it was a very quick moment where he himself could have been in danger. And so I'm glad that it didn't happen that way. I'm very sorry that it happened to the family that it did happen to of the young man. However, I think two things can be correct at the same time. There needs to be the parental intervention at home, but there also needs to be community resources, and I think you leaned into that we need to bring to bear. And we're going to talk about that in a moment of where we're going to send our resources. Are we going to invest in, National Guard? Are we going to invest in making sure that young men don't get to this point? But one other point that I think both you and Otis tapped into, you said it in the opening comments, mostly taking place downtown, all of these 901 events, and you said crowds, I don't do them well. Why don't we spread out 901 events all over Shelby County, 324 square miles of wonderful space, like the park out at Shelby Farms and other spaces where we don't have so many people compressed into one space trying to carry out activities where there's alcohol, there's loud music, there's this pumped up atmosphere. We are not a monolithic city where we do everything the same way. There can be quiet activities. How about Symphony Sunset on the lake out here, something like that, so that we have different people in different spaces and places doing different things, and not all in one space trying to carry out 901 Day.
Most definitely. All right,
Yeah.
and you did mention the National Guard troops, which is our kind of two-parter to this. So the possibility of National Guard troops coming to Memphis is starting to feel like it could be a reality, maybe. More Tennessee Republicans are hinting at supporting the Trump administration's crackdown on enforcement. So we asked that question to Governor Bill Lee and Memphis City Councilwoman Jerry Green. You're also going to hear from Memphis Mayor Paul Young, and here's what they had to say.
There is nothing that is off the table. Everything is a possibility. What's most important to know is that we will work with the Trump administration, and are now, on what is the best way forward for Memphis.
My goal is to keep the lines of communication open. I have a great relationship with the governor, and we're going to work through it.
If they want to give us funds and resources to support the programs that we have around gang violence intervention or any other crime prevention programs that we are already practicing, I'm sure we will happily accept those funds. But federal troops will offer no assistance to Memphians.
Now, we also heard from Marsha Blackburn, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who said blue cities like Memphis need all the help they can get to combat violent crime. And I'm grateful for President Trump's tremendous work to hold leftist officials accountable for putting their own citizens at risk by pushing soft on crime agendas. I support the Trump administration's efforts to restore law and order in lawless cities across America. And I'll continue to work with the president, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Director Kash Patel to do whatever it takes to make cities like Memphis safe again. We also had reports of Representative John Rose telling radio station KWAM that he vows to deploy National Guard troops to Memphis if he wins governor. So that's another person on that. So I want to throw it to, I guess I'll go to Worth first. More Republican support. So this is a deep red state. And is this turning from skepticism to a reality?
It's a possibility now. And look, I say all hands on deck. I don't think there's one thing that's going to solve this problem for us, so we have to chip away at it with a lot of different solutions. And the National Guard, and we get the opportunity to look at how they're deployed and whether or not they're effective in D.C., and if they are, is there a capacity in which they could serve here in Memphis and have a positive impact? There are a lot of different roles in which they could fill. We were talking about that young man just minutes ago. If there was a National Guard stationed on that corner, would he still go into the backpack and draw the gun? If there's a National Guard checking the crowd before they got to the event, for bags and weapons and things like that, would people have brought guns downtown? So we have a manpower shortage in various spots across law enforcement in Shelby County. If we can get some temporary relief, I say bring it on.
Y'all look like y'all want to bite on that.
You said it. It's temporary.
Yes.
That's exactly what it would be. It would be a waste of funds. You don't have an interdisciplinary or interjurisdictional agreement where there's a strategic plan that has been discussed. Law enforcement works in layers. When you bring in the National Guard without a plan to involve the Shelby County Sheriff's Department and the 3 or 4 municipalities around us, Germantown, Collierville, Bartlett, and all of the spaces that have a police force already, and now Arlington wants one that has coordinated their plan with Memphis, you're going to have chaos. You're not going to have any lowering of real statistical, long-lasting law enforcement making an impact in this space. And so these things have to be talked out and vetted. Marcia has singled out blue cities. That's politicizing this issue and not making it about really having an impact on crime. Governor Bill Lee has changed his tone. In the beginning, he was saying this is not necessary. Now he's saying everything is on the table. And so when we really want to have a real comprehensive conversation, let's bring all law enforcement together. I suggest taking the dollars that is being used to bring the law enforcement of the Guard into a city, give that money to the cities. Let them hire more officers. Let them fund more programs. I think this is costing over $250,000 a day in D.C., up to $400,000 a day. That's too much money to spend on some people just standing around helping people across the streets.
You have a last point here?
I wholly agree with what Keith just said about the politics of it all. If you cared about criminal justice, you wouldn't be using terms like leftist officials and blue cities and all of this. That's politics. That's not public safety. And I'll say this. I don't think anything is going to happen here in Memphis because this president loves picking fights. And there's nobody to fight with here like there is in Illinois, for example. He loves to be fighting J.B. Pritzker, the governor, and the mayor of Chicago. He loves fighting the governor of Maryland and the mayor of Baltimore, and he loves fighting the governor of California. There's nobody to fight here because all the Republicans are kowtowing to whatever he says. And so I expect that that's going to be
We could try fighting crime. I mean, I think that's a fight that's worth taking up.
Well, we are fighting
Where
crime.
does the National Guard fight crime?
Right. They're picking up trash right now.
The Tennessee Highway Patrol is assisting in the perimeter. We've seen a lowering of the number of races up and down the highway. We don't see people turning donuts as much as we did in the last 2 summers.
Right.
Because they have a coordinated effort and a plan that's working with Shelby County and with Memphis Police Department. So the Guard coming in, picking up trash is an overutilization of a law enforcement branch that is not intended to police city streets.
Let's let them have the feudal last word here.
Beautification projects are cute, and they're doing some of those in D.C., but that's not the crux of the work. And there are many roles that they could fill here that would have a positive impact. And we shouldn't do it without a plan, and we shouldn't do it without an exit strategy. You're right. We'd be fools to do it without forethought and partnership with local law enforcement.
Well, I haven't seen any of that yet.
All right, we got to leave it there, gentlemen. From crime to the criminal justice system, we have more talk on a new 201 Poplar. We'll be right back.